Okay. Hi, everybody. While this is usual Monday for a formal council meeting, we're going to do a short workshop before then on a single topic. So I'll open up the workshop and observe who's here. I see Molly, Jeff, Paloma, Dan, Lee. I believe both Pam and Amber are out of town and excused.
Pam is on remotely.
Oh, okay.
And Amber is excused.
Okay. Pam, are you there?
Here.
Okay. And then I see our city administrator and our city attorney both here. So let's start up. There's only a single piece of business on the workshop. We said that we would pick up the local law concerning towing and see if we can get that out of the way. And then also, if people view the public hearing as non-controversial, we might actually vote on it this evening. Is that right?
Yes.
Schedule-wise. So let's see how we get there. Nick, are you going to, Christian, are you going to take us through some of this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In response to council comments at last week's meeting, we made some revisions to the proposed towing law. And just to briefly summarize, we have added a new definition for parking facility that includes any parking lot that's able to hold 5 or more parking spaces. That is really the minimum threshold set by the New York State statute. We've also revised the definition for privately owned real property to try and simplify that definition, and it now is any real property used for private parking, which is not a parking facility. We've added that only parking facilities must have a contract with towing companies, so people with privately owned parking lots do not. Same is true for parking facilities. They are only required to have tow warning signage. We've also reduced the minimum size of the no parking sign to be 12 inches by 18. And we've also added revisions to ensure that owners or operators of privately owned real property will still have the proper authority to remove illegally parked vehicles. Additionally, we've added revisions to make sure that the consumer protections are still afforded to everyone, and also revisions to ensure that when someone is towed from a private, someone's driveway, that the Beacon Police Department is still notified so that car is not reported stolen, and there's also a way for the Beacon Police Department to be able to track those types of tows. And then for avoidance of doubt, we've expressly exempted privately owned real properties from the signage as well as the contract requirements. And I do understand that there's potentially a question regarding the fee structure. And so we have proposed to revise the fee structure so it's set by the city administrator in consultation with the chief of police. That is really a similar process to what would happen if it was set by the council or by local law, but it really allows it to be streamlined. And so that if there are market changes or other factors, the city administrator and the chief of police can amend that fee.
And it is published on our website, so it's transparent.
Exactly.
If we were going to make any changes, I would advise you of those.
Okay, but you wouldn't need a vote from the city council in order to make the changes with this amendment to the law? Am I understanding that correctly?
Not under this draft.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Well, certainly from my end, that all sounds pretty much the way we discussed it. It sounds like you picked everything up. Anyone got any concerns?
There are some things we brought up. Pam brought up an example of a piece of property that might find this onerous, but where we are right now, I appreciate the work that's being done to balance both the need to tow some cars and also protect consumers. So given what's been shared, and I appreciate all your work on this, Christian, and you as well, Chris, and also the police department, I'm fine with what it is. And if we get feedback in a public hearing that there are still some cases we can continue to tweak. So I have no problems with moving forward with the draft we have now.
And on Pam had raised the issue of the 3x3 sign being too large. And so what we did is we made the minimum size 12 by 18. And that way, if some entity already has a 3-foot sign, we're not making them go buy a new sign. But people will buy the smaller signs because they're less expensive.
And most likely with the 12 by 18, that is the sign that those lots that Pam was talking about have.
Yeah.
And so they would be covered under this.
I did have a question actually about if I'm a single-family homeowner and I want to tow a vehicle, it sounds like the towing company would still have to fill out paperwork on my behalf. Is that kind of where this law still touches on that?
Yeah, the towing company would still be responsible for notifying the Beacon Police Department. However, the property owner would need to sign a written authorization. And so
Okay.
that would be identifying that car that they want towed.
Okay,
And so the intent there is to, make sure that someone actually called in the car.
Right.
And that there is a way to track where that car came from, and also that the information called in to beat the police department on the written authorization. And then once the vehicle are there, all three match up.
okay.
And it really prevents, the reason this law was originally put in is that you had predatory companies going around and doing this on their own, absent a call. They just kind of had an agreement, and they used it as a way to maximize revenues.
I have one thing I just wanted to double check with the, parking capacity of 5 or more motor vehicles. Should it be distinguished if that is that the total including handicapped, or should that be on, not including handicapped? I'm just double checking, if we just, so there is no confusion.
So that it would include handicap spaces. The way that the New York State law is drafted is it applies to any facility that is capable of fitting 5 or more cars. And so really that is the bottom threshold. And so you can be more stringent than that, which is what the Beacon Code currently provides, as well as the draft that was proposed. But now we are setting it at the baseline for any, so if there's handicap or other types of specialty parking spaces, as long as it can fit 5 or more vehicles, it would be included in this.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so on the voting meeting, we would propose to set the public hearing on this for June 17th. And then we can hear feedback.
Okay, so just a question about, there's a lot of, there's some responsibility placed on homeowners with this law, and so I guess I'm wondering what the ramifications are, and maybe I'm just overthinking it, but let's say someone calls to have a car towed. They don't need to be in a contract because they're a single-family home, so they call any towing company that they want. That any towing company may not be familiar with our law, so you could have a homeowner and a towing company not in compliance with our law, correct? Right, like they could not go to the police department with the information.
Well, that would ultimately fall upon the towing company.
Okay.
And so the towing company needs to be aware of those laws and this regimen. That is an aspect of the licensing requirement. So if you're going to be towing from parking facilities, you have to be licensed
In the city.
Got
with
it.
the city. But if you're towing from, single-family homes, you don't. So, yeah, that is always a possibility of non-compliance.
And what's the fine or penalty for non-compliance for a towing company that?
Didn't we made it up to $1,000.
So it's $1,000 if you boot, and then I believe we haven't adjusted the violation aspect. And so if someone does,
You had-
and there's also additional, civil remedies that someone could, if they get put in a tough spot, they
Right.
could,
Like the people whose car has been towed? And
yeah, and if it's been towed in nonconformity with this law, they do have remedies against the towing company. Sorry, I'm trying to. Yeah, so and this is not a proposed amendment, we have left except for illegally booting a vehicle, we've left the other types of violations the same. So currently, it's first offense is a $100 fine, second is $150, $250 for every subsequent fine. And that
Towing
is,
company.
yeah, against the company. So that's basically a violation. Anything more than that becomes a non-classified misdemeanor.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, as I visited other towns besides Beacon, been looking in parking lots and seeing what I see, and I don't see any signage. And I'm sure that some of these places, which are quite big, like a Lowe's or an Adams or whatever, must have some arrangement. So I'm certainly not going to slow this down. We should pass this. I got no issues. But I reserve the right, if I ever get any more attention on this, to think about, we still may be two owners here. But that's for another day.
And I'm just thinking after listening to, Dan talking about a resident, I could imagine anybody who doesn't have an agreement with a towing like somebody that they use, if they're not a parking facility, would probably be breaking this. Because like the homeowner or the property owner wouldn't even know, like it would be helpful to have a list of who is, somebody that they know the Beacon laws. Does that make sense?
Pam, I think one of the things is that most of the towing is not happening from single and two-family homes. I don't know of any that have happened during the time I've been city administrator. I do know the three major housing complexes are the ones calling, asking for this law. So we've heard from the Beacon Housing Authority, we've heard from from Tompkins Terrace and Davies South Terrace, that they have a problem and that they asked us to fix it. So I really don't think, most times people aren't towing from a private driveway. Those are pretty easy. It really is these larger complexes.
Chris, can you remind me, as just a course of communication, when we pass a new local law that might, affect people who aren't necessarily paying attention to the day-to-day workings of us, do we normally post that on Facebook or anything like that, or do we just let our local newspapers cover it?
Yes, the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't really done that.
All right. So this is just a workshop, so a consensus, we're okay to move forward on the regular meeting with setting a public hearing for the following meeting on this. Everybody good? Okay.
Yes.
Anything else on this topic before we adjourn the workshop?
I appreciate Paloma's comment about having information published. I think we should do something, maybe just an archive of information beyond, not just trusting the newspapers, just that if there's a significant change to local law, that we should just post a simple notice just to let people know that you should research this further, provide information that we can. So I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've been meeting with the local papers more on updates to our laws, so we'll do something on it. Not all of the laws are that impactful. This one would be, so we can.
All right. So I'll take a motion to adjourn the workshop.
Motion to adjourn the workshop?
Second?
So I've got Dan and Molly, all in favor?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
All right, we'll see you all in about 10 seconds in the regular meeting.
Okay.
All right.
You're going to gavel in?